Action. Let me get this straight. You want me to cook and keep house, care for myself and my family, and teach my children? Who said I have any business teaching my children? Wait, what? You're saying my kids will benefit from their first and best teacher this year? And there's a bridge in Brooklyn I'd like to sell you. Cut. And that internal tennis match is exactly what we're talking about in today's episode. This is Motherhood Unmasked, the podcast for real talk about the challenges moms face. I'm your host, Vanessa Harris, but Mama, you are the hero, so leave your mask at the door. We're all friends here. Hello and welcome to episode 15 of Motherhood Unmasked. Whether it's your first time visiting or you're a regular, I am so glad you're here. Well, today's the day. My kids head back to school, and I say that with air quotes because back to school is still at home in this COVID era. Lord Jesus, we are still in this house, all of us, and very much in need of your grace. Now, we already talked about the journey to your decision about how your kids do school this year in episode 11. And for many of you, the school year's already been underway. But today's episode is encouragement for those of us overseeing distance learning or homeschooling for the first time. For some of you, distance learning was forced on you when your school district left you no other option. And like I said in episode 11, homeschooling isn't something you enter into lightly or feel confident about going in. I remember how frightened I was when we began our 3-year stint homeschooling back in the day. At the time, as a military family, we moved to an area with a school district that left a lot to be desired. On top of the fact, our oldest had just come out of a toxic learning environment and just needed to regroup. But I had a medical degree, not a teaching degree, and I'm not the most patient person in the world. What if I screwed them up? What if when it was time for them to return to brick and mortar school, they were behind? I had every fear people who are anti-homeschooling like to pose. And a few things snapped me out of that fear cycle. One, my kids were in a situation no one else had the answer for. You never know what motherhood will require of you, but when you believe your kids are in a bind that's potentially hazardous, a mama's got to do what a mama's got to do. Two, while I'm not a formal teacher, I'm certainly my kid's first teacher, as you are to your children. You taught her how to respond to social cues like smiling when smiled at, and how to play peekaboo. She learned social graces from you like please, thank you, and how to put away toys when finished playing with them. You taught him his first words, how to identify letters, animals, and animal sounds, and how to do his business in the potty. There are countless things you taught your child, some fun and some not so much. But you know what you had? The grace to do it. Even when you didn't want the grace, you had it. And three, and most importantly, I had assurance my kids would have the best teacher based on a promise in Isaiah 54, verse 13. It sat on my fridge, and this is what it says. All your children will be taught by the Lord, and great will be the peace of your children. So if I functioned as the junior teacher following his lead, Jesus assured me my kids would have the best teacher. And with that grace and assurance, I did my best to prepare a curriculum customized to my children's needs and learning styles, and find other homeschool families to share the teaching load with. And it was still a one day at a time journey. And along the way, I found out plenty of things that weren't working and that I had to make a pivot from. But God is faithful. And when we moved here to Texas and I registered my kids for school, not one of them was behind. In fact, not only was my oldest fully prepared for 6th grade, my middle child tested gifted and talented, and my youngest tested ready for 1st grade, though by Texas cutoff dates, she was too young. to go into first grade. So I get it. It's a tough pill to swallow that after giving birth, middle of the night feedings, countless diaper changes, potty training, character building, and on for multiple children, some of us, to now have educating them thrown back in our laps when you feel clueless and unprepared in the middle of a pandemic is a lot to ask, especially if you're working a full-time job. But can I tell you something? You can do more than you think you can when your back is against the wall. You'll be surprised how creative you become when your child is counting on you. And I know you're afraid you'll let them down, but you won't, because there's no one more invested in your child and passionate about their success than you. And if that's true for the homeschooling mom, that's certainly true for those of us managing our child's learning environment, though not directly responsible for what they're learning. So keep it simple, sister. I know you see the posts of people setting up desks and decorated learning spaces, but don't get caught up in that. Make sure your kids have basic school supplies in addition to their device and a space to work in that's comfortable for them. Put a little thought into what you have on hand to busy them during breaks in the school day, like books, crafts, or toys that don't require a battery or a plug. We don't need the extra noise. And just take it one day at a time. Once you acknowledge your confidence regarding your child's education isn't ultimately in you or a school teacher, awesome and necessary as school teachers are, but in Jesus, He'll make sure you have everything you need to face the challenges this coming school year. Because when it comes to you being the mother of your children, and whatever that requires in any given season, you are still the woman for the job. Take care. For all things Motherhood Unmasked, including fun and helpful resources and a link to leave me a message, check out vinelifefaith.com/podcast. Motherhood Unmasked is sponsored by Vine Life Faith, where we're breaking negative cycles and building healthy community through connection with Christ. vinelifefaith.com.